Within a year, Dave was freebasing cocaine and getting bored with Panic. Then in the fall of '81, he saw a newspaper ad for a guitar player. It had been placed by a band called Metallica.
There was an ad in there for lead guitarist wanted, and they had said they were looking for someone influenced by Iron Maiden and Motorhead.
I just got this phone call from this guy who basically just called up and started talking. I mean, after hello, I don't think I said anything for like the next 10 minutes. He was just going blah, 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 blah.
So I go to audition for this band, and I took my amps and everything, and I plugged in, and I'm warming up.
He had this shrieking lead sound that would cut through any soundproofing. Everything just was exploding out of everywhere of him.
I said, well, are we going to audition? And they said, no, you got the job.
Dave Mustaine believed he'd finally found a place in the world where he fit in. But his sanctuary would be short-lived. In the fall of '81, future Megadeth frontman Dave Mustaine finally found an artful outlet for his aggression with Metallica. The band was at the cutting edge of a musical revolution called thrash, a fusion of punk rock and hardcore heavy metal.
It was angst and testosterone driven about anarchy and things like that. Four of us were the detonation, the beginning of something that was going to really affect music forever.
With songs like Jump in the Fire, Metallica cranked up the oral anger of seminal metal bands like Motorhead, clashing head-on with the glam groups dominating the LA music scene.
So tell me what you think about glam rock.
To me, glam rock stands, glam means gay LA music.
We had grown up in LA and saw all of the BS rock star podium, you know, big wig hairdo stuff, and we were so against any of that.
Would you please welcome Metallica?
Metallica spent a year perfecting their sonic jabs in clubs and studios, proving that their bad boy image was no act.
When I would go to rehearsal, I would leave the dogs there to watch the drugs. And one day I took one of the dogs with me, and she put her paws up on Ron McGovney's car and scratched the front panel.
The pit bull started jumping on my car, scratching it all up. When I hear James yelling at Dave saying, hey, get your frickin' dogs off of Ron's car.
And James kicked the dog. Now, everyone thinks I kicked James' dog, and it wasn't that way. James kicked my dog, and that's where we went, don't do this, oh, don't do this, or you're going to get fired.
When I hear James yelling at Dave, and all of a sudden Dave just came unglued. Don't you say this kind of crap about my dogs. And they're nose to nose.
Shut up or I'm going to hit you. And then the bass player goes, you hit him, you're going to have to hit me first. And then James goes, you hit him, you're going to have to hit me first. And I said, you win, James. And I belted him in the mouth.
Knocked him across the room. He wasn't even expecting it.
And the bass player jumped me, and I flipped him.
He threw me against the wall like a big judo throw. And we just got him and said, get out of here, you're out of the band, you know? All right, F you, blah, blah, blah. And he goes in, packs up all his stuff, leaves, comes back the next day. Can I be back in the band? You go, all right, okay, you're back in the band. Dave was pretty much a Jekyll and Hyde.
That started perpetuating the Dave's an asshole rumor, because as far as anybody knew, I was just a badass on guitar that liked to fight and drink.
Well, it just got worse. I wasn't home one time, and Dave was sitting there drinking, and my bass was on a guitar stand, and he decided to take a whole beer and just pour it right into the pickups on my bass. Just down the whole thing in there. I didn't know anything about it. Go plug it in. About blew me across the room, shocked the hell out of me. I told Dave, look, you guys get the F out of my house. James, get out, you're gonna have to leave. That's it, I can't take it anymore.
Within weeks, McGovney was out of the band.
He just was not dangerous. If you're going to be in Metallica, you're four badasses, not, three men and a baby,
They came in the U-Haul, loaded up their stuff, and they were off to San Francisco.
Metallica moved their angry act to San Francisco and hired bass player Cliff Burton. The city by the bay soon became heavy metal headquarters.
There were gods in San Francisco. We're selling 3,000 to 4,000 tickets to shows. They were legends before they ever released a record.
We felt a lot more comfortable up there, and the whole flashy side of LA just wasn't so prominent up there, you know?
On stage, Dangerous Dave was part of Metallica's instant attraction.
Dave was outspoken, did a lot of talking into the microphone, which I thought was very unusual for a guy who was not singing at all. He was playing the role of bad boy. And he played it well. I mean, he was a pretty scary guy.
It seemed to me like I was the leader of the band because I had big balls and I wasn't going to take shit from anybody.
Metallica quickly drew allegiance from an underground army of angst-ridden teens already armed with the sounds of the new wave of British heavy metal.
We were all followers of the new wave of British heavy metal. Metallica's music was kind of like these groups, but Americanized, more powerful, more straightforward.
I had never heard like such a twin rhythm guitar kind of deal going on. Their music just had more speed or something to it, and it blew me away.
So you couldn't read about it in mainstream magazines. You couldn't hear it on the radio. There certainly was no MTV or videos or VH1. It was really about a network.
By the beginning of 1983, Metallica had punched out a 7-song demo tape, No Life Till Leather, that quickly became legendary in the American metal underground.
What the music was speaking about, the lyrics and the lifestyle, that really hit home to a lot of kids for that time period.
We are you and you are us. On the No Life Till Leather demo, James says, we are Metallica, you are Metallica. And that was sort of the ethic that lived, you know, with all these fans and all these bands.
That March, aspiring metal manager Johnny Zazula heard the tape and convinced Metallica to move to New York.
Are you planning to do any recording soon?
May 1st, Rochester, New York.
With James Hetfield's pickup in tow, Metallica hit the road in a U-Haul.
The back went down and you were locked in there, and whatever happened back there, you know, if you could afford a flashlight, you were king, you know? But there was no light, no anything back there. You just get rotted and sleep, you know, hopefully. And hope the gear didn't fall and crush you.
While I was in the back of this truck, rust came down from the ceiling and got in my eyes. I said, I gotta get to an emergency room because I've got metal shavings in my eyes. And they didn't want to stop till we got to Old Bridge.
Dave's dark side soon got the best of him.
There's two kinds of drunks. There's happy drunks and there's violent drunks. And I would get violent.
He just went like totally psycho on some people in this restaurant and almost caused this big fight.
We started to see that he was on the road to killing possibly all of us.
Before they even reached New York, James and Lars were listening to other bands' demos, hoping to find a replacement for Dave Mustaine.
We're playing tapes in the cab of the truck while he's asleep in the back on some stained mattress. I mean, that was the whole ugliness of that U-Haul trip.
Metallica arrived in New York in April of '83. Their first order of business was to rid themselves of Dave Mustaine.
All I remember was waking up and then being circled around me, and I just looked up.
Wake up, Dave, you know.
Get up, you're out of the band. And I said, what, no warning, no second chance?
It was almost like execution style. We just walked in, woke him up, fired him, grabbed him in his shit and took him down to the bus stop, and the whole thing took, 45 minutes.
It does sound pretty bad, wake up, bye, but it really had to happen that way.
The breakup was hard on everybody.
I remember this like it was yesterday. I was sitting in the back of James's pickup when they drove me to the bus station, and I looked at James and he was weeping.
We were brothers up to that point, and then something had pulled us apart, and we knew it had to continue that way, so it was emotional for all of us.
I'd seen my dad in a coma and dying, and this was probably more harmful to me than anything I'd ever been through.
Dave spent the next 4 days on a bus bound for Los Angeles, seething over his expulsion.
I hated them. I was so mad at them, and I figured I need to regroup and I need to start over again because now I'm going to get revenge. Part of the whole reason why I formed Megadeth was to get back at them.
To the store, we'll cut you down.
Just months after his expulsion from Metallica, Dave Mustaine rebounded by forming a rival band called Megadeth. But in the winter of '83, his old bandmates stole his thunder when they released their debut album, Kill 'Em All.
I remember the day Kill 'Em All came out, and I listened to it, and I heard the first song, and my stuff was on there. I was fuming because I told him not to use my music.
His ex-bandmates maintained Dave said nothing of the kind. Still, Mustaine was now more determined than ever to outmuscle Metallica. He sped up the tempo of Megadeth's Assault and made his lyrics even more nihilistic. That November, the new label released Megadeth's follow-up album. Peace Sells, But Who's Buying was a quantum leap, both in terms of its quality and its complexity.
I was like a really big fan of Peace Sells. The second record I thought was an awesome heavy metal record at that time. And I listened to it a lot. And even though I certainly didn't tell anybody at the time, I was, I guess, secretly kind of proud of the work that he'd done because he had stepped up to the plate.
The band released So Far, So Good, So What, which became their biggest seller to date. The album also revealed a different side of Dave Mustaine. His song, In My Darkest Hour, was a metal elegy to Metallica bassist Cliff Burton, who died in a bus accident in September of '86.
As soon as I heard, I just picked up my guitar and I started crying, and I just wrote the song, the music, in one fell swoop from beginning to end.
In a series of European shows, Megadeth opened for Metallica, a once-in-a-lifetime battle of the bands.
We had pretty much avoided it just because of the competition, and at that point we finally welcomed it. You know, said let's see who's got the cojones now and who's gonna rule the stage.
Of course, it was something that had been talked about for years. You know, would Metallica and Megadeth ever share a stage together?
To get a chance to play with them again some way down the line in some way would be awesome.
It was the first time that Metallica had acknowledged that Megadeth were, you know, worthy enough.
It could have been a real big nightmare, but it turned out to be so cool.
It was awesome that it happened, and in some way, I think it kind of broke the ice.
Unaware of Mustaine's recent drug overdose, his former bandmates greeted him with a grim practical joke.
Clearly, we were sitting in the dressing room, and he came in really meekly to sort of say hello, and you were like over in the corner, like laying out lines made of like, you know, sugar or something.
Yeah, we wound him up pretty good.
Right,
and
so
you know,
nasty.
it was pretty, it could have been pretty evil. You know, we had no idea where his personality was at that point, but it was evil. You know, hopefully, you know, he took that as a funny thing.
The concerts were both cathartic and cruel for Dave, who kept a critical eye on Kirk Hammett, the guitarist who had taken his place in Metallica.
The first time that I heard how long that they allowed Kirk to do his solo, I thought, God, he's horrible.
I remember him just sitting backstage, just kind of watching the whole thing, and you know, I was feeling for him.
I thought, this is supposed to be me. You know, I'm over it now, and I can see how hard he tries to do what he does. I mean, I think he makes really good use of what talent he has.
Despite his envy, overall, the tour was a high point for Mustaine.
Metallica really showed Dave and the group a real respect for all the time Dave spent seeking revenge, and all the time Dave spent tortured because the band he got thrown out of became the biggest band in the world. I think this felt really good to Dave, and I think it felt really good to the guys in Metallica.
There was never really that much animosity between me and him. I think we forgave each other rather quickly. I've seen him a lot, and we've run into each other a lot in the last couple of years. Me and him have actually gotten a kind of a cool phone thing. He calls me once in a while and just tells me how he's doing. I have a kind of a pure thing going and stuff like that. So
we definitely experienced a lot of cool stuff together that can never be changed and never be done again with the same innocence and virgin territory, you know, that we had covered.
Virgin.
Lastly, it sounds about Dave, but
virgin used loosely.
Anything else you guys want to say about Megadeth?
They're all right. No.
I think, I mean,
This is the Dave hour.
No, I mean, just, you know, Rust in Peace.
What?
Wait.
That's one of them.
No, wait. What's the second?
Peace Sells?
Peace Sells. Okay, there you go. Some peace. I mean, I remember just when the first record didn't do that much for me. I mean, I respected it and stuff like that, but I was like a really big fan of Peace Sells. The second record I thought was an awesome heavy metal record at that time. And I listened to it a lot. And even though I certainly didn't tell anybody at the time, I was actually, I guess, secretly kind of proud of the work that he'd done because he had stepped up to the plate. I certainly didn't tell James. But now
I know.
But I thought that was an awesome record. I don't know. I mean, once again, you know, the one thing you got to admire about anybody who's been around for as long as he has, you know, just the staying power is awesome. I mean, in a time frame where most bands stick around for 15 minutes or less, it's just awesome that it's been 15, 16 years for him and he's still here making records. And so you got to always tip your hat to that. It is pretty crazy that we were actually in a band together for what now seems like about 5 minutes or something, you know, but it's something that nobody can ever take away. And that was just it's a great part of our history, great part of his history, and a great part of rock and roll history in the last 20 years of the 20th century, you know?
I'll tell you one thing. I never had more fun with two guys in my life than drinking with James and Lars. And if I didn't have a disease where I could actually stop once I started, I would love to get together with those guys and do it all over again. I'm really looking forward to the day where we can sit down and just laugh about how, you know, how this thing just mushroomed into this unbelievable thing. The two of us have sold more records than probably any other two bands that I know. But, you know, I think that the world could stand to learn a lot from Metallica. They have done just about everything picture perfect. My success is based partially on the doors that they've opened for us all, and partially on me being the ex-Metallica guy. Now, a lot of it has to do with my own songwriting, but I can't deny the fact that a lot of it has to do with them.